Hello, I am back with the, which is now going to be the third video for the second day of our class, Rhetoric of Tourism, June 4th, 2013. The other one was too long, so I had to split it up according to my iPad here. And so I'll try to be brief. Yeah, right. So the last slide that we dealt with was sort of a quick review of critical probes, and we used that, or I tried to use the Ellis Island stuff as an example of your rhetorical thinking cap or hog hat that you should always be wearing. There's of course more to the story, but that's a beginning. The next slide here is about forgetting memory. The important thing here to remember, there's lots of important things here to remember about memory. I'm going to read a little bit to you just so you can highlight some stuff here. The middle paragraph on page 12 is amazingly important. It starts with "if rhetorical." And so basically this is what it says. If rhetorical studies work focuses on and troubles meaningfulness, legitimability, partisanship, consequentiality, and publicity as they manifest in and among discourses, events, objects, and practices, how does it engage with contemporary memory studies? The easiest answer, and at times a quite accurate one, is that rhetoricians have found what appears to be a natural affinity for the assumptions and work of public memory scholars and have participated in the interdisciplinary enterprise with great ardor. More often than not, rhetoricians have accorded with, or at least rarely questioned, public memory's consensual premises, apparently in the interest of getting on with the business of exploring particular cases of discourse, events, objects, and practices of memory. Such accord, though it has culminated in some undeniably good work, may not have been the most productive route for either public memory studies or rhetoric. So, in the remainder of this section, we challenge some of those accords in the interest of serving both. We return first to memory's relationship to the present. And so basically they say that there's it's sort of like a big literature review, and they're trying to create their gap for those of you who know who have taken my classes and you've had to do lit reviews and things like that. So basically they're saying here that there's a thing out there called memory studies, and folks who study rhetoric have, for the most part, just sort of done what they do, but they say there's sort of more to the story here, and again they're trying to justify their own book by adding some more theoretical stuff to help us better understand public memory. The next bit, what is public memory? And that's very important, and this is on page 12, the very last paragraph there. And as I say, this whole the rest of the entire section that we're reading is a big lit review. Basically, public memory has been variously described as responding to needs of the present, serving the interests of the present, animating the present, serving as rhetorical resources of the present, and so forth. So, in other words, when we're dealing with issues of public memory, whether it be a place like Fort Sumter, Ellis Island, or whatnot, we are in part concerned with how public memory impacts the present. So we aren't necessarily concerned with reconstructing the past, if that makes sense, but understanding how the construction of the past is made useful or not, or made meaningful in such a way that it becomes a resource for our contemporary thinking of public problems. I don't know. So some other important ideas here, constructed versus real versus invented, page 12, 13. You know, what's important here is that public memory, all that stuff is constructed. but everything is always going to be based on real events. It's not like, even though things are partial, it's not like Fort Sumter the tour is going to completely and utterly fabricate the past. But the idea of something being invented does not mean that it's completely fabricated out of thin air. Invention and rhetorical invention, which is the next bullet point, is the process of coming up with things to say about certain things. And so this is what they say about the idea of there is no pure articulation of the past, so everything is sort of invented. But to reject invention understood in a rhetorical sense is to reduce memory either to self-identical rehearsal of an event or to assume the transparency of symbolism, neither of which is plausible on its face, much less in light of memory studies' other assumptions. And so make sure when you understand constructed versus real versus invented, real things happened in the past. There really was a Strom Thurmond, but and he lived until he was like 380, and he had 379 children. And so real things happen, but we still sort of are selective in how we sort of create or invent public memory and things that craft public memory. And then, of course, all the above in this particular slide serves as the first assumption of memory studies tied to public memory. Although public memory is invented, it is always sort of tied to real things that actually happened in the past. The next slide here, the second and third assumptions, or accords, I guess, that they would say about memory studies generally. Public memory is shared and embraced as a marker of a group. Even though everything is partisan, we talked about that type of stuff. So there is a sense that there is a shared memory, even though not everybody might share that memory. And so it talks about whatever public memory, however it takes shape in its material mediated form, it must be it's shared through some mode like that, through a statue, through a story, through a book, through a speech, through something like that. And also it must attract a certain degree of adherence. If everybody thinks it's crap or they don't believe it, then it doesn't become public memory. So it's shared, and people adhere to whatever that public memory might be. Think about the various monuments to the American Revolution, and how we have very much a shared understanding of what that event is, even though there might be multiple ways of seeing that. And then the next bullet point here, public memory must have a great deal of affect. And then the questions on page 14, middle paragraph, are very, very important. So you might want to highlight that stuff. It says, when we're thinking about affect, remember when we think about affect, we're thinking about emotional resonance. How do these, because some people will they are so attached to a certain type of public memory. Think about the Confederate flag and how it stirs the passions on either side. So basically on page 14 it says this: why is this memory so alluring as compared to other memories? What affect is being deployed that helps to secure adherence to this particular memory content and to the group that holds it to be important to its collective identity? So one part of this whole process is trying to understand not just what the meanings are, but how and why do people cling so passionately to this memory versus this memory over here. And then on page 15, there's another important paragraph here. There's key paragraphs all over the place. The rest is just fluff. Page 15, starting with what renders. That's very, very important. So again, questions of what renders messages, memories, or other kinds of contents believable, persuasive, or even compelling to particular audiences at particular times in particular circumstances. And these are the questions generally that rhetorical scholars have been asking about speeches, about all sorts of different things. So again, they're sort of offering a justification for looking at public memory and places of public memory from a rhetorical point of view. Highlighting the role of rhetoric and affect. That's sort of the next thing that they do, starting on the top of page 16. And they talk about Aristotle and philia, which is a Greek term for love, friendship, affiliation, attachment, or affective modality of public memory. That is, why do we cling to certain memories, and there are certain groups that have certain memories. We become passionate about it. We love it. We will die for it. And so that's really important. The idea of affect and emotional resonance, again, is very, very, very important, and how that comes about through the rhetoric of these places of public memory. And the important point starts on page 17, I think. It starts the important point here, and it says the important point here is not the particular organization or reach of the collective, but that the affiliative mode of public memory is felt and legitimated rhetorically. Public memories matter and are authorized to speak for a public that invests in them. And Kenneth Burke, of course, called this identification. We can become consubstantial with a certain group, with a certain public memory, and all that creates a very strong affiliation, a very strong kinship with that group, with that memory, and everything like that. And we're interested in how all that happens. Why is it that the Confederate memorial, or whatever it's called now, with the Confederate flag, resonates with such a huge group of people, the whole sort of Southern heritage crowd? And you know, as a rhetorician, we were trying to figure out how does that happen. And then the next slide, 4 important implications regarding public memory as rhetoric with affective investment. Again, we're dealing with I'm clinging emotionally to this thing. And so the implications is that there is a sense of feeling or belonging, and that is a condition of the possibility of public memory. Public memory is always going to have some sort of affective aspect to it. And then the next bullet point, affiliative investment, is elementally rhetorical. That is, how we create that kinship is a rhetorical process. Next bullet point, meaningful is not just meaning something, but strong emotional investment. Sort of the same thing. And so we should critique memory's mode of production and circulation by asking questions like, what makes certain public memories stick, resonate? How does that happen? What are the effects of all that type of stuff? So these next, I mean, these pages are really all about the idea of the emotional, of emotion and the affective effective and how all that stuff is a rhetorical process. You could take it all back down to pathos if you wanted to really, really simplify. I moved on to page 18 to discuss partiality and forgetting. Again, they sort of talk about how public memory and memory is all, but they're really about public memory here, not individual memory. It's all, partial. It's all selective. It's never going to be the full thing. The next thing, there is always a relationship between remembering and forgetting. However, they say that dialectic is problematic. and they say that we need to be very, very